This show is produced by the Harwood Podcast Network.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris. We love making this show available to you free of charge. And if you'd like to help us keep it that way, make a contribution to our Karma Jar or become a show sponsor. To learn more, visit our website. Welcome back to the Bead Workshop. Today we're going to be making a necklace where we string the entire thing, so that should be really fun. Now, when I went to go look for beads for this project, I went to my craft store, and what I did is I was looking for a series of beads within a particular line, and what I ended up coming up with were these silver, bronze, and copper beads, and they were in different sizes and different shapes. So I purchased these, and that's what I used to design this project with. So when it's time for you to get your beads, I might suggest that you do the same thing. Go to the craft store and then look at a particular line of beads and then pick sizes and shapes from that. Now let me show you our design. This is going to end up being a 16-inch necklace. Now I'm choosing 16 inches because that's a good choker length for me. But if you would like your necklace to be longer, go ahead and decide how long you would like it now. These are the supplies that we're going to be needing. We're going to be using some 3mm beads, and those are the really tiny ones here, and we're going to need 98 of those. Now, if you are going to add more beads, this is the place to do it. You're going to add more 3mm beads, and for each inch, that takes about an additional 10 beads, but you're going to want to add that on both sides of the necklace. We're going to be using some 6mm beads, and that's these dark ones here. And then two different kinds of decorative beads. I have the 9mm beads, which are round, and then these 10 by 15mm beads, which are the diamond shape. Now we're going to be creating some drops, much like we did with the bauble earring, using head pins. These are each going to be on a drop, so we'll get practicing making some of our wire loops, and for that we're going to be needing some head pins. And then of course we're going to need our beading wire. Now when you use beading wire, you want to make sure that you add a couple of inches, so you measure how long you want the necklace to actually be and then add a couple of more inches. So for this piece we're going to be needing 18 inches of beading wire. And then we're going to be using a toggle clasp, and if you remember, when we use a clasp of some kind we have to use a crimp bead, so we're going to need 2 of those. So let's get started. I found a great little bead storage thing at the craft store that I wanted to share with you. It kind of reminds me of what fishermen use in their tackle box. And basically what happens is these unscrew, and this one has a lid, but then these are separate. So I thought that was kind of neat. I'm going to take the lid off this one so all 4 of my shapes I can get to. Now, for this project, you absolutely need to use a bead board, and here's why. If you notice on the channels here of the bead board, there are these numbers, and that is telling you how many inches around your necklace will be. So for example, we want our necklace to end up being 16 inches. We go down here to the bottom, and this is 0, and that will be the center of our necklace, and then we're going to string up to 8 here and then up to 8 here, and we can just lay our beads right in this channel. It's a really great way so that your beads don't scatter all over the place. The first thing I want to do is create these drops here. So let's start with the one on the end. This is one of my 9mm decorative beads. Now I have in these beads that I purchased, they have 3 different colors. One is silver, one is bronze, and one is copper. Now I'm going to be using 4 of these. I've decided I'm going to use 2 coppers, a silver, and a bronze, and you can decide whatever you would like to use depending on what kind of beads you got. Now for this drop, all I do is create a wire loop. So I'm going to take my one bead, I'm going to take a head pin, I'm going to string that through, and the head pin is just going to catch right at the bottom, and you'll see we don't even see it, which is great. And then as you remember, when we make a wire loop, we snip off all but about 1/4 to 1/2 inch. We take our round nose pliers, and this is really important with this particular bead. See how flat it is? I need it to stay flat like this. I don't want it to be hanging this way on my necklace. I want it flat. And when I bend this, I make my right angle, and then I'm going to take and roll it this way to make a loop. And then I'll go ahead and place this just up here on my bead board. Now I'm going to create the second one, and this one is one of the decorative beads. Now again, I have 3 different colors. So you'll notice with this bead here, we're putting one of the 6mm beads at the bottom. That's just to help give it a little interest. So this is my 6mm bead. I'm choosing to actually have the bead color match on these. So I'm going to use a bronze bead at the bottom of this. So I'm going to take it, and I'll run my head pin through the bottom, and then I'll take my other bead and I'll put it at the top, run it right through, and then you'll see again I want it to lay this way on my necklace, so it's real important that I hold it in place like this. Snip off that excess wire, then bring my round nose, make that right angle towards me just like this, and then roll it back. Now at this point I'm going to go through and create all the drops I need from the necklace, and I'm just going to line them up here on my board. Now you can see I have all of my drops made here, and I can put them in any order that I'd like to once I start laying out my beads. So let's go ahead and start with that now. Now make sure you find the 0 on your board, and if you'll see here, that's going to be our first bead. So you're going to have to make a decision which you want to be your center color. Now I'm going to have my coppers on the end, so I think I'm going to have a copper in the center. So I'm going to pick that up, and I'm going to place that right here on the board. And I'm not going to actually put this in the channel because I want to have room for the beads, but I do want to place it just so I can see visually how it looks. Now I'm going to start building to the right. So you can see I'm going to have a 3mm bead, which is my tiny one, and then one of my 6mm beads. Now when you're working with beads of these different colors, these 3 different colors, you can get very particular if you would like and have a pattern like copper, silver, bronze, or you can just pick them up and place them and be very random about it. That's actually what I'm going to do today. I kind of like that random look to it, but you do whatever you like. So now I'm just going to go ahead and put another 3mm bead, and then comes my first little 9mm bead. Now I think on this one I'm actually going to go with my silver, so I'll place that there. And again, I'm not going to place it in the channel. I'm going to lay it on top like this, and then I'm just going to continue on with my pattern up until I get to my last 9mm bead on the side here. Now I've just set my last 9mm bead here, which is my copper one. And so you can see the pattern after that is 3mm, 6mm, 3mm, 6mm. And we're going to end up doing that 5 times. Now for your 6mm beads, because they're easier to pick up and deal with, if you want to choose which color you want to go with that, go right ahead. If you want to keep it random, you can certainly do that as well. Now I've placed my 5 6mm beads, and now I'm going to string 38 of my little 3mm beads. Now here's a great tool. This is a wonderful little thing because this is 4 small beads, and what I can do is just pick up my bead container and kind of load it with this, and then I can lay these right in the channel. Again, I'm going for the random thing, and I'm just going to lay them end to end until I get to about the 8-inch mark. Now I'm going to go about counting these little beads, and I need 38 of them. So as you can see here, on the center point of our necklace, all the way up around to the side, I have all those beads laid out. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to do it on the left-hand side. So I'll start here at the beginning, and I'll go ahead and get this side ready. Now, just a design tip, if you want, you can actually follow the same pattern, if you want, of your 6mm beads and just mirror it on the other side, or you can just pick them up and have them be random. I'm actually going to mirror this because the 3mm are so random. I like the idea of there being a little bit of a pattern in the 6mm beads, but you can do whatever you would like. And now that this is laid out, I'm going to take my tool and put out my little 3mm beads. Now this necklace is ready to string, so let's get our beading wire cut. Now you can see I need 18 inches of beading wire, and then I'll use my snips and cut that. Now it's not imperative that you get it exactly 18 inches long. You just need to have it a little bit longer than the strand. The number of beads is what's going to determine the real length. And then I need to get out 2 crimping beads and my toggle clasp. So here's how we're going to get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little crimp bead and put that on my beading wire just an inch or so down, and then I'll take my little round end of the toggle clasp and thread that. Then I'm going to take the end of my beading wire and I'm going to thread that back through my crimp bead, and then I'm going to snug that up, bringing the crimp bead pretty close to the end there. I want to have a little bit of give, and then I'll take my flat nose pliers and I'm just going to crush it. And that's going to keep the end of the clasp nice and secure. And then I am going to want to trim that little tail off. And now we can go ahead and start stringing our beads. So if we're going to start here, we're going to take the other end of our beading wire and we're going to come to our board and we're just going to start threading all of these beads right on our beading wire. And you get a couple on and you kind of push them down and then you just keep stringing. Now sometimes what I do is when I'm stringing little beads like this, I'll actually rotate my board and I'll kind of line them up if possible so that the ends, the openings are all kind of lined up like that, and then I can just run them through right to left. And many times once you get the hang of it, you can string a few on at a time. So now I've gotten to the point where I'm getting into my 6mm beads. Now at this point it is really important that you keep the beads in order. With the little tiny beads it doesn't really matter, but when you start getting into the pattern with the big beads and the decorative beads, you are going to want to keep those in order. So here's our string so far, and we've come up to our first decorative bead. Now it's important that we get a visual that that loop is indeed closed, and then we just string it on, and that looks great, and then we just continue on. Now we're coming up to the halfway point, so I'm going to tilt the board back around so it's facing me. Now, one of the things you're going to find when you do beading is sometimes the bores or the holes in the center of the beads can be very inaccurate. Sometimes they're really big and sometimes they're really small. What's interesting, in these 9mm beads of mine, the bronze and the silver ones have a smaller hole in them than the copper ones. And as I was making the little loop for the copper one, I found that the head pin was actually just coming right through the center of the bead, which is no good. So what I'm going to do, and this is always something that you can do, is I'm just going to take another bead. I'm going to take a copper bead, but a little small 3mm bead. And I'm going to put that at the very bottom, because that is a small little hole, and it'll hold the head pin. Then I'll thread the copper one, and then put my decorative bead on top. And that still looks really, really good. But it's funny, sometimes when you're working with beads, they're not entirely perfect and you have to work with it anyway. And now I have it and I can place it on my string. So I have half of the necklace strung and it looks great. Now I just have to go through and string the other half. And so I've strung my last bead. I'm going to rotate my board back around, and now we have to put on our crimp bead and the other side of our clasp, and then you'll thread the wire through the crimp bead. Now we do want to snug this up close to the end of our string, so you'll want to kind of pull that down, and because we put a couple of extra inches of beading wire, we have plenty of room to do that. We just keep pulling. Give yourself just a little bit of a loop. You don't want it so snug, but just a little bit. Then grab your flat nose pliers and crimp that. And then once again, you'll just snip that little tail. And our necklace is finished. And if you hold it up, it's just the perfect length. And then you can see here we've just followed the design perfectly. Now, before we go, I want to tell you all about the badge program that we've launched at the network. We've gone through all of our shows and designed badges, and for the bead workshop, you can earn badges from making all sorts of jewelry that we do here on the show. Now, if you'd like to earn a badge for making the necklace we made today, now all you have to do is take a photo or a video of the necklace that you make and send it to me, and then I'll send you the necklace badge. People around the world are collecting these now and having so much fun. All you have to do is go to our website to sign up. Now, if you're ready to start making your necklace, just go to our website and visit the Bead Workshop show notes, and I'll have the design there for you that you can download. Now, don't forget to become a friend of ours on Facebook. You actually earn a Facebook badge for that. And of course, if you have any questions or ideas for me, please send me an email. I'll see you next time.